Alright, guys, next is the main event. It's the 1 hour Iron Man match between MJF and Bryan Danielson. And, guys, oh my god, crazy freaking match. Alright, Danielson comes out, and first, he's got a freaking huge pop. What do you expect? It's Danielson. Then we start hearing some piano music, and then some people and some devil masks come out with violins and stuff. And they start playing this, like, really eerie type music, right? And then MJF music hits, obviously. So he comes out and he's wearing a freaking devil mask that he actually wore at Double or Nothing last year. That intro was cool. It's kind of like something like you'd see at WrestleMania or something. But MJF looks like the perfect freaking heel here. He's got the freaking mask on. He's got the belt. You can just tell he's definitely the bad guy in this picture. But even if you're just a casual fan. So Danielson and MJF, here we go, guys. Freaking hour long. MJF's in freaking great shape. Like, every time I see him, I feel like he's just freaking more jacked. I was telling Alex, like, is he taking something? Come on. But anyway, Perry and freaking Cole could freaking learn something from MJF. Because, again, like I said, like, if you look at MJF from the beginning of AEW to now, you can just tell he's working really freaking hard. He wants to be the top guy, so... MJF's getting a lot of freaking boos, which is nice. And MJF went to go pick up his belt at one point, and he dropped it, and the fans laughed at him, and he got super ticked off about that, which was great. The bell rings, and here we go. So, Iron Man match, 1 freaking hour. Alright, so Bryan is like toying with MJF, and MJF goes on the outside for like a breather, doesn't want to deal with it. When MJF actually gets back in the ring, he actually hit Bryan with a freaking really nice arm drag, and Bryan was actually surprised. It's not like MJF can't wrestle. We've seen him do it before with Jungle Boy and stuff. But then Danielson just takes over, lots of submissions and just out wrestling MJF. MJF's super frustrated. And then Danielson even, started doing like jumping jacks. He's like taunting Max. So MJF kicks Danielson real low, and Danielson's like arched over. And then freaking MJF does his own jumping jacks himself, which is freaking great. So a lot of reversals, a lot of chain wrestling, and MJF, just kind of like keeping up with Bryan, matching like all his moves and stuff. So MJF kind of like goes for a handshake because they are kind of like similar, and MJF's keeping up with him, and he's like, maybe some respect here, And freaking Danielson just kicks his hand away. So I don't know, man, this is just freaking nuts. MJF goes in the crowd. This part is just... Alright, so MJF goes in the crowd and he starts messing with the crowd. And there's like a guy in the crowd, and I think he's like yelling at MJF or something. MJF just goes over, grabs a trash can, and just like throws the freaking trash on one of the fans. And I'm just like, oh my god. But here's the best part. So there's like a lady with her kid, and she's in the crowd, and she's holding like a cup of water or Sprite or something, right? And MJF just walks over to her, and he grabs her freaking cup, takes it, and just throws it on the freaking kid. And I'm like, oh my god. Holy cow. Like, is MJF really just pushing this heel thing as far as possible? Like, it makes you wonder if they're just plants in the crowd, or if MJF doesn't care, because he's got like security out there. So it's like, what are they going to do anyway, Just, I don't know, just nuts, man. MJF, he's always pushing the boundaries. MJF attacks Danielson's bad shoulder. That's another thing, he was always paying people off or paying people to like hurt Danielson, and so Danielson's selling this like really bad shoulder. So he gets him in the salty earth, tries to a couple times, and it's going to be a game changer later regardless. But MJF just doing a lot of healer stuff, grabbing Danielson's hair, throwing him down, stuff like that. MJF messed with the crowd a lot. And he was acting like he was going to throw Danielson into the crowd at one point, like trying to clear them away. And then he went to go throw him, but then he like reversed and threw him into the ring and just like flicked the crowd off, like just to tick him off, basically. Really good. We get MJF chants, which is responded by suck chants from the rest of the crowd. So it's definitely a mixed reaction in California. So MJF's messing with the crowd, which allows Danielson to actually go do a suicide dive. But when he actually went to go hit it, MJF reversed the suicide dive and threw Danielson like right into the freaking barricade, like his shoulder. So like Danielson's just like holding the shoulder, like showing like, he's in freaking a lot of pain. So again, MJF's just working the bad shoulder of Danielson for a while. And then Danielson makes a comeback and he hits 3 freaking running boots in the corner, and MJF is out. So Danielson gets MJF to the top rope, hits a Hurricane Rana from the top, goes for a pin, and we get a 2 count. So MJF comes back, and again, he just starts working the shoulder. Basically, every time MJF starts getting some kind of momentum, it's always because of the shoulder. Danielson hits the ropes, and MJF catches him with a backbreaker on his knee. That move is freaking sick, kind of like Jamie Hayter's one. Danielson went for a label lock. MJF reversed it into a slingshot, and Danielson did that thing, where he skinned the cat, where he goes over the top rope, and you try to get back in the ring, and freaking MJF just kicked him halfway through, so Danielson just flies to the outside. Danielson came back, though, hit another suicide dive. Well, we actually connected this one. But MJF gets back in the ring, and Danielson goes up to the top. He jumped off, and MJF captures him in the freaking salt of the earth. But Danielson would get out. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, so he's got him in the salt of the earth twice now. Danielson's got out, so there's a pretty good chance he's going to get him into it later or something, because I don't know. He's went for it early, and Danielson keeps getting out. But if they're selling the freaking shoulder thing, I mean, come on, something's got to happen. But anyway, MJF freaking hit this really nice capture. It's like I think they call it a J driller or whatever. Something, I've seen Jay Briscoe do it. But Danielson, or MJF actually hits it, and he gets a freaking 2 count. And now we're getting a lot of near falls and reversals. I mean, backslides, inside cradles, schoolboys. I mean, you name it. These guys are going back and forth, and the crowd's going freaking nuts. And we're getting so many freaking 2 falls and close 3 falls, and just so many close falls, and the crowd's going nuts. And I don't think I've ever seen that in one spot, like that many, ever. It was just freaking really crazy. But MJF gets up, he hits a massive lariat, and so Danielson gets up and he hits one of his own. So now both guys are out. The ref starts count, and freaking Danielson does that whole thing where he kips up, he jumps up and he gets up at the last second out of 9. MJF gets to his feet, and Danielson just goes over, hits the running knee, and guys, he gets the 1, 2, 3. So if this was a regular match, freaking Danielson would be the world champion. But it's an Iron Man, so Danielson gets a point. And then we look at the clock, and there's 34 minutes still in this match. Almost half the match has gone by, and we just got our first point. So Danielson goes for another knee, but this time MJF collapses to the mat, because he's just so exhausted. So Danielson, doesn't get to connect with the knee. But then when Danielson goes to pick up MJF hit a low blow. So Danielson gets another point because the referee saw the low blow, and freaking MJF gets disqualified. So MJF pins Danielson immediately, and he gets a 3 count. Because remember, he just hit a low blow, so Danielson's in a lot of pain. And there's no rest periods, so as soon as that pin was over, MJF just goes and pins him again, and he gets another freaking 3 fall. So now it's 2-2, and we're freaking tied. I mean, that was really fast. And now there's 31 minutes to go. So we're just about at the halfway point. Danielson and MJF are fighting on the outside, and MJF hit a freaking really nice lariat. MJF put Danielson on a chair on the outside, and then he ran towards Danielson, but Danielson got up last second, hits a freaking lariat, knocked MJF out. And then Bryan puts MJF in the freaking same chair that MJF put him in, and he kicks him over and freaking over, and then he runs to one side of the freaking ring to the other, hits a running knee, and MJF is out. And now we're getting This Is Awesome chance, and it really is, guys. This match is freaking great. Danielson's working over MJF's knee. He starts hitting it up against the ring post, a lot of stomps too. So now you got MJF selling a really bad knee, and you got Danielson selling a really bad shoulder. So kind of evenly matched here. He gets MJF in a figure 4. MJF starts slapping Danielson as hard as he can, trying to get out of the figure 4, and Danielson just arches back, basically you can't hit me, And he puts more pressure on MJF, and MJF just finally gets a freaking rope break, and Bryan actually lets go, though. So there's no disqualification there. They start fighting on the apron, and they're both trading a lot of shots. Danielson kicked the injured leg of MJF, and MJF just starts attacking the shoulders. They're going back and forth, trying to injure each other, and their weak spots. And when we look at the clock, we got 25 minutes left, guys. So Danielson puts MJF up on the top rope, and after kicking MJF off the apron, MJF goes crashing down, and freaking Danielson, trying to do a freaking back body drop. He goes up to the top rope. He puts MJF up there, and he went for a back body drop. He was going to do it on the freaking outside. And I'm like, man, if he would have nailed that, that would have been freaking sick. But I don't know if MJF would have been able to get up after that. But anyway, MJF gets up, and he just tosses Danielson on the apron. And I'm like, oh, man. So freaking Danielson goes back first, right onto the apron below. And now he's out. And again, guys, just freaking brutal match. MJF goes and grabs Danielson, and he puts him on the timekeeper's table. And I'm thinking, this is not something MJF would typically do. But he goes up to the top, he's selling the injured leg, and he just does a diving elbow and hits Danielson right through the table. And it looked like a freaking Shawn Michaels elbow drop. I mean, it was really nice. So Danielson's out, and MJF throws the ref in the ring, and he's like, hey, start counting, because, this should be a 10 count out, so I get a point, And the doctor's checking on Danielson. He's not getting up, and the ref just starts counting. So he gets all the way up to a 9 count, and of course, Danielson gets up to the apron, helps himself up, and he beats the count. So now we look at the clock, and there's 21 minutes left. MJF goes to the outside. He goes up to the outside, and he's at the side of the table that was kind of broken from before, and MJF picks up Danielson, and he just hits this running freaking tombstone through it, and just, wow, man. Freaking MJF selling the knee some more here, and that was nuts. Danielson's starting to bleed now. MJF decides to throw Bryan back into the ring. He hits a freaking heat seeker, and guys, he gets the 1, 2, 3. So MJF gets a third point. MJF takes a breather, and he starts punching away at Danielson, and he's punching away at that open wound, so he's bleeding real bad. And I'm really surprised MJF didn't go for another point there, because obviously, there's no rest periods like before. He could have hit the heat seeker, got the pin, and just went for another one, but no, he went to the outside and took a breather. So 18 minutes left, guys. MJF says, you aren't the best, I am. MJF starts ripping at Danielson's wound and starts talking to Birdie, Danielson's kid. He's talking to the camera, just really great heel stuff. And MJF just at his best, MJF starts slapping Danielson, and Danielson starts doing, a hulking up thing like he's going to do something. But when he goes to throw a punch, he just collapses because he's just so exhausted. He's been beaten down so bad. So MJF, just adding insult to injury, just blows his nose on Danielson. I'm like, oh, man, that's great. So Danielson gets a good freaking shot, though, and hits MJF after that. And then MJF's, still seeing that Danielson just doesn't have it in him. He's so exhausted. MJF just knocks him right back down. So they go to the outside, and Danielson throws MJF into the ring post. And then he hits a freaking flying knee off the apron. So now, guys, there's 14 minutes left, and it's 3-2, and it's in favor of MJF. So Danielson goes up to the top. He dives, and he hits MJF on the outside. Really freaking crazy. It's almost like a cross body, but without going cross. He just kind of went flat, straight up and down, and just jumped on him. But MJF selling this was freaking great. Kind of reminded me of The Rock. He did the whole thing where he bounced backwards from after getting hit, but just good. So they go up to the top again, and Danielson hits a spider suplex, and I haven't seen that in a while. And basically the announcer, I think it was Taz, was saying Danielson didn't want to hit a superplex off the top because that means he's got to take some of the impact from that. So a spider suplex, you just throw him off, but you use your legs to hold on to the top rope. So you don't take no impact, basically. But anyway, MJF's down. Bryan Danielson goes up to the top. He hits a freaking diving headbutt, and, he connects with MJF, and Danielson's clutching the shoulder. He can't make the tag. But when we look over at MJF, he's actually busted open now from the flying headbutt. So that was a nice little touch. Danielson goes to the corner. He's going for the knee, and MJF's on wobbly legs. Running knee from Danielson, and then instead of going for the pin, he puts him in the regal stretch, and MJF taps out. Now it's 3-3, and guys, there's 10 minutes left. What a freaking match. It's just so great. Alright, so Danielson goes for the label lock, and MJF reverses it until they salt the earth. And then Danielson gets out of it, and he goes for another label lock, and MJF is just bleeding so freaking bad. So he's trying to hang on, and he actually reverses it again and gets another salt of the earth. So these guys are just reversing each other's submission holds back and forth, and the crowd is going nuts. And now there's 8 minutes left. So, and remember, it's tied, guys. It's 3-3. So MJF pulls Danielson into the middle of the ring, and he applies it again, and Danielson still will not tap out. So MJF gets closer to the rope, and MJF grabs each part of the body of Danielson, so Danielson can't get the rope break. But the one leg he can't get is the right leg of Danielson. He's got the submission locked in, and freaking Danielson uses that right legs, just gets it over to the rope, and gets the rope break. And I'm just thinking, man, what a match. All right. And there's still some time left. So nobody can say anything about MJF because this just shows how good he is. I mean, him and Danielson are putting on a clinic. And now we're at the 6-minute mark, and both men are just trading blows until they both collapse. And the fans just start clapping because, these guys are putting it all out there, Danielson's laughing, a great freaking camera shot, and MJF is looking like super sad about like how this match is going. So they stand up, and again they start trading blows, and MJF like pokes the eyes and starts cheating, and he's exchanging a lot of just heelish stuff. And they start going blow to blow again, and MJF gets Danielson down, and he hits another freaking heat seeker. And remember last time he hit it, he got a 3 count. Well, this time freaking Danielson kicks out. So again, there's 3-3, and there's only 3 minutes left. So they end up on the top rope, and Danielson's hitting elbows on MJF's shoulder. MJF reverses and hits a top rope pile driver. And wow, that was freaking awesome. All right. So Danielson's out, but MJF can't make the pin because when he hits the freaking tombstone pile driver off the top, remember, he's selling his freaking knee because that's where he's got to land. So there's 1 minute and 30 seconds, guys, and the freaking fans just chanting like fight forever. They're just going nuts for this match. MJF goes for the pin, and freaking Danielson reverses it and locks him at half Boston Crab, and there's only 40 seconds left. Is MJF going to tap out? And remember, guys, it's 3-3, so if MJF taps out, this thing's over with, and Danielson's the new champion. And then there's 30 seconds left, and then there's 20 seconds left, and MJF is still holding out. He still hasn't tapped out, and he's bleeding, and, it's like really intense. And then there's 10 seconds, and then we get down to 3, 2, 1, and freaking MJF never tapped out. So as soon as the freaking bell rings and the match is over, then MJF taps out, which is perfect, So MJF is still the freaking world champion. And the freaking crowd, after they had heard that, was actually getting upset because they didn't want to see it end like that. And I was kind of, after that was over, I was like, hey, man, that was a good match. That's it. And they just ended it with a draw or something, so no big deal. But then Tony Schiavone, he's, getting word from Tony Khan backstage, and, Tony Schiavone comes to the ring, and he tells the ring announcer, hey, this match has to continue per Tony Khan. So the ring announcer says the match is going to continue, and we're going into sudden death. And that's basically what we got, guys. The paramedics check on each guy, and MJF can't believe it. He's like, are you serious? This match is going to continue? He's like super ticked off. MJF pushes the ref down, and the ref pushes back at him, old school like Charles Robinson's type stuff. And he gets pushed, and Danielson gets him up into a roll-up, and it's a freaking 2 count. So remember, this match is restarted, and whoever gets the next pinfall, submission, whatever, wins the match. So MJF hits a blindsided low blow. The ref never sees it. The ref's checking on Danielson, and MJF grabs the world title. So, he wants to hit freaking Danielson with it, but he's actually just using it as a distraction because the ref goes over, grabs the belt away from MJF, and MJF puts on the dynamite ring. So he goes for the freaking ring shot, and Danielson reverses and nails a running knee. Goes for the pin, and 1, 2, and MJF kicks out. So now Danielson applies the half crab submission again. The ref notices the ring on MJF because, MJF's like trying to crawl to the freaking ropes. The ref notices the ring, and he actually pulls it off of MJF's finger. So even though that happens or whatever, MJF still gets the rope break, and while he's grabbing the rope, he's tapping at the same time, so it doesn't count. But Danielson, not seeing he got the rope break and just hearing he got the tap, he thinks he won the match, and he's kind of like celebrating. So MJF falls to the outside of the ring. Daniel's in the ring celebrating. The referee's like telling Danielson, hey, you didn't win because MJF got the rope, So The ref's, not near the ropes. He's not paying attention to MJF, and MJF is on the outside, and he grabs this small oxygen tank from under the ring. So when Danielson goes over to MJF, he's like on the outside trying to grab MJF to bring him back in the ring. MJF makes sure the ref isn't looking, and he just hits freaking Danielson with the oxygen tank. So Danielson's freaking knocked out, and the ref just never saw it, right? So MJF gets into the ring, and instead of applying the freaking salt of the earth, he had, to add insult to injury, he actually applies the freaking label lock on Danielson. So Danielson's already been hit with a freaking tank to the head, and now he's getting his own submission applied to him. So Danielson's holding on, and it appears like, he's going to make it, but then he passes out. So the ref does the 3-arm drop roll. And, it's funny, sometimes I don't do this. They just do one arm, and if you're out, it's over. But they did the 3-arm drop roll, and I kind of like it here. So we get the 1-arm drops, the 2-arm drops, and then the 3rd arm, Danielson regains some life, and he starts getting out of it. And then MJF just reapplies the label lock again, but this time freaking Danielson taps out. Working the shoulder over everything. He just didn't have a choice, and then he got hit with a freaking oxygen tank. So, but yeah, he taps out, and what a crazy way to end the match, having Danielson be the one that taps. And MJF is still the AEW champion. Man, just a freaking great match. It was funny because after this match, Alex texted me and he said it was the best main event he'd ever seen. And I was pretty shocked he said that. But, it was a freaking good match, man. It was just back and forth, good face, good heel, and just both guys at the top of their game.